I think it was 2010 that we went, and we met this anti-trafficking activist, and at the time she was a politician. She's not a politician anymore, Rosie Bosco. And she was very inspiring, and I said to my colleagues there, I was like, I would like to meet some of the survivors here, because I've met American survivors and people in other places. And so they brought me to this safe house with these girls that was in a confiscated drug lord's property. And there were all these girls standing around, different ages and sizes, and they were like little kids. And I was like, oh, those must be like their sisters or siblings. And somehow my brain just didn't want to go there. And once inside, I met all these girls and young women, and there was one little girl who was 7, and she was showing me her math homework, and she had, a gap in her teeth, and she was so cute. And she had just recently been rescued from a brothel in Cancun, where she had been forced to do things that she can only describe as incorrectos for 3 years, from the time she was 4 years old. And my heart broke when I looked at her, because she reminded me of my own daughter. And she was telling me she liked to dance. Her daughter was in dance classes and still is a great dancer. And I was just like, but this is my daughter. This is, I'm seeing her eyes, and like, how is this possible? Of course, we didn't discuss her trauma. We just talked on a friendly level about normal things. But then I went on to interview some of the older girls, and we did a formal interview. And this one girl was very, very tough. And her name was Carla Jacinto. And she looked like a little tough girl with a cap, denim jacket, and just really tough demeanor. And she revealed to me that she had been in this rodeo scheme, which is a common way for people to be sort of drawn into the life where a boy makes a girl feel that he's in love with her. And she falls madly in love with him. And in her case, she was being abused by men. So she ran away with this boy to escape the hell at home. And then walked straight into a fresh hell that was much worse. She was in what they call the city of pimps, Tiananzingo, which is like the whole business of the town is commercial sexual exploitation. And she estimates that she was raped over 64,000 times from the age of 12 to 16. And her stories are just horrific. But at one point during her enslavement, she became pregnant, and she actually twice. And the first time they forced her to have an abortion, and the second time she had the baby. And one day she was insubordinate to her family, and to punish her, he took a hot iron and branded her on the face. And then I noticed that she had this scar here, and then on her baby's face. And then only then did I realize that the little child behind her was actually her child. And at that point, like, this single tear rolled out of this very tough girl's face. And I walked away from that interview very demoralized, thinking, okay, there are some scars that are too deep to heal. Like, how is she ever going to recover from him hurting her baby in front of her, from being raped? Sometimes, the suffering that she has endured, how is she ever going to get over this? Well, cut to, I think it was 2015, because in 2014 I was a speaker at the second annual Vatican Conference on law enforcement and the clergy working together to fight human trafficking. And the next year I was invited back to the Vatican to be a witness for this interfaith signing of a declaration of human trafficking as a crime against humanity. And it was Pope Francis, it was Archbishop of Canterbury, it was Amma, the Hadi saint of India, it was this big Russian Orthodox patriarch, it was a rabbi from Argentina, it was an 88-year-old Buddhist nun. All these different religions were represented. I can't even count how many were there, and I feel I'm leaving people out. I don't need to. But it was significant in that usually the world religions don't join together to do something together. And they were all joining together to decry human trafficking as a crime against humanity. And so the night before the ceremony, I was walking around Rome looking for a place to eat, and I spot Rosie Orozco, the activist from Mexico City, and she's like, Mira, hello. She talks, and I was like, hi. She was like, you remember Carla? And this girl standing to her right is in this white coat, and she's sort of shyly smiling, and she looks beautiful and happy. And I was like, oh, that's the tough girl. And then we have dinner together, and she's like making jokes, and she's very funny, and she's getting her education. And now she's married and has another kid as well. And she's responsible for international Megan's Law being passed. And she's, and I'm like, well, what are you doing here? And she said, oh, tomorrow, in front of the whole world on CNN, I'm going to read the Declaration in Spanish. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I'm just the biggest idiot in the world because I wrote her off in my pity, in my, feeling sorry for her. I shut my mind and heart down to the possibility that she had the strength to reclaim her life, that she had the grace to just still wake up every morning with hope and positivity and reclaiming that beautiful life that God had meant for her. And it's not to say that she doesn't suffer, traumatic memories and has hard days and probably has days which are very, very hard, right? And has terrible memories and has triggers and this and that. But she has, like a phoenix, risen above to live her life in this beautiful, hopeful, triumphant manner, And that's when I realized, okay, no one is a lost cause. And I think that a lot of people, when they contemplate the darkness of human trafficking, and especially child sex trafficking, as we deal with in this movie, think that the suffering of the victims is so great that they're already kind of gone. And that even if they get out, their life is over. Nothing could be further from the case. If a person can rebound from what she suffered and be living this beautiful life where she's an empowered helper of others, she's altruistic. She's trying to help bring her sisters and brothers who are still in bondage out. And she's trying to let the world know of what can be done, what should be done. She's a survivor leader. And I was like, okay, this is the human spirit. This is the human soul. This is the grace of the Holy Spirit, kindling all of us. And we can never give up on people because of our own limited minds. I had a limited mind. I was like, some things are too much for people to endure and they're just lost in a way. And that was so stupid of me. And so that's what I want to say to anybody who watches this and is moved, but then they're like, oh, but the ones who weren't found by Tim Ballard, they're already kind of lost. They're not. They're just waiting for us. They're just waiting for us to change things for them, to pull them out and to give them their chance to